Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report here in Washington, D.C. I'm Vago Muradian at Satellite 2017, one of the largest gatherings of commercial satellite systems in Washington, D.C., and we've got Mark Spiwak, who is the president of Boeing Satellite Systems International. Sir, thanks very much for joining us.
Hi, good to see you, Vago.
Let's talk a little bit about what the commercial satellite market looks like. It's a challenging environment. It's a very, very competitive environment. It's an environment that's changing very rapidly. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing. What are the opportunities you're pursuing and the successes you guys are having?
Sure. So I think the commercial satellite market right now, it's one of the main drivers is dollars per bit or dollars per bandwidth, right? We all want our cell phone devices to go connect and have connectivity anywhere, anytime. And so really some of the challenges and the innovations that we're doing in the satellite industry have to do with providing that connectivity, providing the flexibility. So no matter where I go around the world, I'm connected.
One of the things I should also have pointed out is Boeing is one of our sponsors. Talk to us a little bit about some of the bigger things you're pursuing, because obviously if you look at it, airlines, it's having a complete change, for example, in the entertainment business, right? So if you were a provider of seatback entertainment systems, that's completely changing because now you've got the bandwidth connectivity. Airlines are saying, hey, bring your own device aboard the airplane, download our app, and you can have that. What are some of the things you guys are doing to position yourselves, for example, in that market where you're seeing enormous growth?
So one of our top innovations that we're bringing to market is what's called a digital payload. It's the ability of our satellite payloads to reconfigure where the connectivity is. And so we've been doing these payloads for the last 25 years, and as we've seen cell phones and smartphones evolve over time in Moore's Law, we've been taking that to space. We lead the satellite industry in fielding these digital payloads. So what's so special about the digital payloads? Operators can move bandwidth on demand on orbit. So if there are people wanting connectivity, say over New York during prime time, put all of the coverage over New York and take it away from other areas where it's not needed. And it can actually track prime time across the United States or across Europe. So there's no stranded capacity, and the capability is where it's needed, when it's needed. Now, why is that so important? Because that maximizes the revenue for the operators. It allows us as consumers to have the connectivity. It allows the operators to maximize their value and their revenue, and it drives down the dollars per bit. So it from a consumer standpoint, a manufacturer and operator, it's all the elements for success. As a manufacturer, it greatly simplifies our payloads. Our payloads and some of the manufacturing techniques we're employing with 3D printed parts, with satellites that can test themselves, digital payloads are just simpler to build, lower cost to make, and so we continue to lead the industry in fielding these type of capabilities, so we're very proud of that.
One of the things that every company is trying to do, and you guys have prided yourselves on, is to try to see what parts, what are commercial elements that feed into the military side, what are military things that feed into the commercial side. So it's actually a two-pronged question, because you also have Boeing Commercial Aircraft, which is airplanes, which is actually a manufacturer of extremely sophisticated composite parts. We visited Seattle just a couple of months ago, where we had an opportunity to see some of that technology on display, certainly going into the 777 airplane, but as well as the full Boeing line. Talk to us a little bit about the virtuous cycle you guys are in on the military side of things, as well as some of the things that you guys are drawing from the commercial aircraft side of things, which people might not intuitively think in the space business is directly applicable.
So if you look from a commercial aircraft standpoint, right, we build a 737, including paint, in 11 days. And so what are some of the manufacturing techniques there are applicable to, I'll say, a lower volume type of satellite manufacturing? Right? And so a lot of the assembly techniques, the tooling techniques, and the processes we've been able to incorporate from Boeing commercial airplanes to really leverage our ability to build the satellites. Also from a supplier management standpoint, working with our suppliers, how Boeing commercial airplanes works the supply chain, we've leveraged that tremendously to our advantage and to our suppliers' advantage. Now, regarding the government and commercial markets, the same digital type of capabilities apply from a government standpoint. If I have, and the WGS, the wideband global SATCOM satellites, have these same type of payloads as our commercial satellites, so they're able to move beams and move bandwidth where it may be. So if there is where it may be needed, If there is a tsunami, unfortunately, in Japan, we're able to move that capability there and provide that humanitarian relief effort, which the U.S. DoD actually did to support the humanitarian relief in Japan when Haiti had some issues of environmental discourse, able to move the bandwidth around where and when it's needed. And so it's used the same way on the government side as the commercial side, providing people connectivity where and when it's needed.
Let me ask you a kind of a broader strategic question. Obviously, there's going to be a big meeting tomorrow on bandwidth. Everybody around the world is trying to figure out sort of what's the next generation here. And the space game itself is changing, right? There's a lot more stuff that's going terrestrial, for example. The TV game is changing. The internet model is changing. I was talking to a European friend of mine who was saying, like, hey, look, once upon a time, TV was really the big thing. Now when it changes to, for example, internet, you're looking at lower altitude satellites. Some of us guys are very high altitude guys. Talk to us on both sides of that. From a frequency standpoint, what's the kind of approach that you guys would like to see, obviously as a major satellite producer, but also in terms of how the game is changing? How is that changing game driving changes to your business strategy as you look out, say, 5 years from now?
So from a frequency standpoint, just as we saw 10 years ago, frequencies going higher from C-band to KU band to KA band, and why were they doing that? People were utilizing those frequencies for higher compression, for high definition TV, high definition broadcast. We're now seeing people look at Q-band, and V-band, and the higher frequencies. Not only is frequency available there, but again, can have the higher modulation schemes and have the ability for high definition and improved high definition connectivity. And so, I forget your second question. Sorry.
My second question is that the space game itself is sort of changing, right? Whether it's as you're transitioning from this TV, heavy future, going much more toward internet on demand. You have OneWeb, for example. I know which is from your competitor, Airbus, but obviously they announced the Intelsat partnership there. But everybody is looking at that changing game and how they compensate for it. How is that changing game driving your strategy and where you guys want to be, say, 5 years from now?
So interesting, when satellites, a number of years ago, satellites provided that ubiquitous coverage where you couldn't lay fiber, like over Indonesia, where there's thousands of islands. Satellites were much more affordable than laying fiber. What we're seeing now also is in the developed countries, laying fiber is becoming more and more expensive. And so satellites, in conjunction with GEO satellites and MEO satellites, providing the price points as well as the capability to compete with terrestrial systems. And I think we're seeing that more, not just because of dispersed islands, but the cost of laying fiber, of maintaining fiber. The economics are changing. And so the technology is such that we are investing in and fielding capabilities that mirror terrestrial in urban areas and places that were traditionally just there laying fiber. And so driving those price points that enable both terrestrial and space systems requires now us to be able to coordinate frequencies to make sure that terrestrial systems and space systems can work together, so there is the technology and the capability to share spectrum. And that's a big deal. Spectrum is the beachfront property, right, of where we're at today. And so how does spectrum be shared through power sharing, power pooling, and whatnot, so they can work together in conjunction with each other and not fight each other and inadvertently jam each other?
Sir, thanks very much for all your time. I know your time is pressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vago. Appreciate it.